Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump cutting off all trade with Spain, this because of a decision Spain made amid U.S. operations on Iran. President Trump mentioning reports that Israel struck the very building where Iran was reportedly choosing a successor to Ayatollah Khamenei as U.S. forces hit more than 1,700 military targets and embassies brace for imminent attack. The U.S. shuts its embassies in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait after drone attacks as Iran retaliates across the Middle East. The State Department urges Americans to leave the region. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Noem's testimony comes as congressional Democrats demand that DHS overhaul its immigration enforcement tactics. The first major primary elections of the season are underway. Today, voters in Texas and North Carolina picked their nominees for the 2026 midterms.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Our top story, President Trump expressing confidence in U.S. military operations targeting the Iranian regime. In the latest update, he says the U.S. has decimated Iran's air protection and other military capabilities.
We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. That would probably be the worst. You go through this and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So I'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people. And we'll see what happens with the people.
The president is saying another strike today hit Iran's new leadership, adding a lot of Iranian regime personnel are asking for immunity. Trump praising the U.S. military for doing a great job, saying Iran's Navy, Air Force, and air detection systems are all knocked out. He adds that he doesn't want to eliminate every government personnel like what happened in Iraq in the early 2000s. He says he would like a more moderate figure within Iran who is popular with the people to lead the transition. And in a surprise move, the president announcing the U.S. is cutting off all trade with Spain for how they responded to Operation Epic Fury.
And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
The president making the comments while welcoming German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to the White House. The German leader says his country is supporting the U.S.-Israeli mission against the Iranian regime. Trump thanks Merz, saying Germany is allowing U.S. forces to land in certain areas. Trump, however, criticized the U.K. alongside Spain for not being helpful. The president again voicing his disapproval of the U.K.'s decision to lease the Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean, which is home to a joint U.S.-UK military base. U.S. forces hitting more than 1,700 military targets in Iran, and Israel reportedly striking a site in Iran where leaders were selecting a successor to Ayatollah Khamenei. We're now joined live by NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley. Jack, talk to us. What's the latest on this?
Well, Don, just to let you know about the German chancellor in the Oval Office, just goes to show how much support that President Trump and Israel are getting in these operations. Now, President Trump from the Oval Office also mentioning reports today that while Iran was picking a successor to the killed Iranian leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Israel struck the building that they were picking his successor in. Now, this just goes to show the strength of U.S. and Israeli intelligence. Central Command now says that it's hit over 1,700 targets inside Iran U.S. military hitting those targets alone. Now, these are all military targets, including command and control centers in Iran. They're also striking their military headquarters, their missiles and missile launchers. All 11 of their Navy ships in the Gulf have been taken out as well. Israel, meanwhile, is striking similar targets, also hitting Hezbollah terrorists in the north, in Lebanon, who joined in the fight against U.S. and Israeli forces. And earlier, a couple of Iranian drones hitting the U.S. embassy in Saudi Arabia, and thankfully no one at the embassy was hurt as the building was empty at the time. The United States closed its embassies in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, with the State Department warning of imminent attacks on Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. The U.S. Embassy in Dhahran putting out this statement today, saying, quote, "There is a threat of imminent missile and UAV attacks over Dhahran. Do not come to the U.S. consulate. Take cover immediately in your residence. On the lowest floor, available floor and away from windows. Do not go outside." Now, overnight, new departure orders issued by the State Department for 14 U.S. embassies across the region. They say to leave by any means available due to the emerging threats there. And the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem now says that it's unable to evacuate American citizens from Israel. But now, the latest, we have the State Department saying that it's preparing military and charter flights for Americans who want to leave the Middle East. That's as more airports are shut down, making it difficult for them to leave commercially. Now, many of the Gulf countries have been taking hits from Iran, many ballistic missiles and drone strikes hitting these countries. And they're thinking about, we're hearing reports that they may be considering a counterstrike on Iran. That's because Iran has been firing at hotels, airports, residences in countries like the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, and even Lebanon, where their Hezbollah terrorist friends are, and many other countries in the region. The UAE already coming out saying that they have enough munitions to attack Iran and resist attacks as well going forward. Trump has been saying that, building relationships over the past year, maybe putting forward a new strength in partnerships with these countries with a common enemy of Iran. Don.
And Jack, how is Congress responding to this? Are they looking at a war powers vote like we heard about over the weekend?
Right, so there is a fight in Congress right now. Congressman Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna say that they want to force a war powers resolution to the floor this week. If passed, it would limit President Trump's authority to conduct these strikes. But those in favor of the president say that he's following the law. Take a look.
Clearly, this is a war of choice, not a war of necessity.
The idea that we would move a War Powers Act vote right now, it will be forced to the floor, but the idea that we would take the ability of our Commander-in-Chief, the President, take his authority away right now to finish this job is a frightening prospect to me. It's dangerous, and I am certainly hopeful, and I believe we do have the votes to put it down.
Now, that war powers resolution is unclear if it will have enough votes to make it through, as the speaker just said, that it may be shut down. Don, back to you.
Okay, Jack, thank you. The Iran war has entered its fourth day. Joining us now to break down the latest on Iran and the war powers resolution is Gerard Filitti, Middle East affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. So, Gerard, good afternoon. First, President Trump today giving insight into what led to these strikes on Iran. I have a clip here. Let's watch that now.
We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. So, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now.
So, Gerard, your reaction there, it looks like President Trump is calling this a preemptive operation.
It's very clear what he's saying. He's saying that this was a defensive action on the part of the United States because of an imminent threat from Iran. They were not being honest and forthcoming with their negotiations. They were continuing to enrich uranium in order to build nuclear weapons. They were continuing to develop ballistic missiles that could reach the U.S. or U.S. bases in Europe. So this was a threat to the United States. President Trump saw that as an imminent threat and took action. That is, I think, what is absolutely clear by this statement is that he is justified by American and international law in taking military action against Iran.
What did he mean when he said that he may have forced Israel's hand? What does that mean?
Well, there have been some suggestions in the past few days that Israel was driving the motivation behind attacking Iran, that the United States was really following in Israel's lead. And I think President Trump just dispelled that idea that Israel is acting in cooperation and coordination with the United States at President Trump's urging and not the other way around. So this really is an American initiative, an American defensive initiative that forced Israel to act sooner perhaps than it may have wanted, and not an Israeli action.
Now, on this issue of imminent threat, a U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, also revealing a big detail from negotiations with Iran. So I have another clip here. Let's take a look.
And let me say this, because I forgot this small little detail. In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%. And they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance.
Okay, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is pretty clear, and we have been clear from the beginning that we cannot allow Iran to become a nuclear power. That the agreement, the peace plan that was in place with President Obama, the deal to stop enrichment, was not something that Iran ever held to, which is why President Trump canceled that JCPOA deal and is now preventing Iran, because they clearly have stated that they were and they are developing weapons-grade uranium in order to build nuclear weapons. So the Iranians are not being secretive about it. They're not denying it. They're being forthcoming in the fact that they want nuclear weapons. And this is why President Trump had to act now with urgency.
Okay, so Gerard, some members of Congress are demanding a vote on a war powers resolution to restrain President Trump's military attack. So can you just explain for us, how exactly does the war powers resolution work?
The War Powers Resolution requires a president to notify Congress within 48 hours of hostilities commencing when the president inserts or starts an action, whether it's defensive or not, anywhere around the world. President Trump has done so. He briefed the G8, the Gang of Eight, before the attack started, and he's provided additional briefings and rationale since. Now, Congress has to authorize or not authorize this action, because Congress ultimately has the power to declare war, even though President Trump does have the power to use the armed forces as needed for the defense of the country. The War Powers Resolution vote would be intended to stop President Trump from continuing to wage aggression against Iran. The issue is it's not likely to pass the Senate, even if it does pass the House, now that we have more senators coming out and supporting this action when before they may have been opposed to it. And even if this does pass both chambers of Congress, President Trump can just veto it, which means Congress would need to surmount a 2/3 vote in each chamber in order to stop this conflict. And they're not likely to have those votes at all.
Okay, just one final question, Gerard. So if Congress has the power to formally declare war, and President Trump has called this a war, right? So what is the legal justification for President Trump to do this without explicit approval from Congress?
The legal justification comes down to the need to defend our country against an imminent threat, which is what President Trump explained in his press conference today, that the president does have authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as commander-in-chief, and this is how it's been interpreted in 3 or 4 decades of jurisprudence and 3 or 4 decades of presidents of both parties, both Republicans and Democrats, using American forces in a similar way, that the president can engage in force of arms in order to protect the United States. This is President Trump's justification, and it's a legally valid one.
Okay, Gerard, thank you for sharing your insight today. Always enjoy hearing it. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Don.
The first major primary elections of the season are underway today. Voters in Texas and North Carolina picked their nominees for the 2026 midterms. We have more news after this break. Don't go away.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get 2 free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris. Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Voters in 2 southern states are headed to the polls today as North Carolina and Texas hold the first major primary races of this election season. NTD's Melina Weiskup breaks down what to watch for.
The top race to watch tonight will be for a Texas Senate seat. There are competitive races on both sides of the aisle, but for the Republicans, it will be even closer. You have 4-term incumbent Senator John Cornyn up against Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. They're both vying for the Republican nomination. President Trump has said good things about both candidates, but endorsed neither. Right now, polls show Paxton is leading.
They have advantages, huge financial advantages, and their thought is the people of Texas won't really have a choice. We will go out and tell everybody that John Cornyn loves Donald Trump, which he does not.
And on the other side of the aisle, you have Democrats once again pushing to win a Senate seat in Texas. We have Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett up against State Representative James Tallarico.
If you have voted for Democrats, but you're tired of Democratic politicians always folding, you've got a place in this campaign.
But whoever wins the Democrat primary will still face an uphill battle because no Texas Democrat has won a statewide election since 1994. There are also a few House races to keep an eye on, notably where Democrats might be more vulnerable after redistricting. One example is Texas's 34th district. You have one Trump-endorsed candidate, Eric Flores, competing against former Congresswoman Mayra Flores for the Republican nomination. They're vying for a chance to unseat Democrat Vincent Gonzalez. As for North Carolina, the big race to watch in this state is in District 1. 5 Republican candidates are competing to take on Democrat Don Davis. He already had a tight win 2 years ago in a Trump-won district. Though Don Davis is uncontested on the Democrat side, Republicans have made this race more competitive through redistricting. Polls close at 7:30 in North Carolina, closing at 8 and 9 p.m. in Texas. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
For further discussion on the Texas primaries, joining us now is Mike Leon, lead anchor of the Legal Podcast Network and host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. And we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. Tony, I'll start with you this week. Can you just give us your thoughts, your opinions on the Republican candidates?
Well, I think so far I'm a little bit unhappy to see Ken Paxton leading. I would really rather have Wesley Hunt in Texas. I think he's far more put together as a representative. He has a very excellent record. I think he's much more well-spoken as well as driven on issues culturally and economically than perhaps Cornyn is. Ken Paxton has more baggage than a cheap taxi outside of LaGuardia. So I'm not entirely sure what exactly that's going to do for Republicans. In North Carolina, it's a bit more of a toss-up, and I'm going to hold my tongue, although there are a couple of candidates there that don't embarrass Republicans. And that's really the goal for 2026 midterms. You don't want to nominate a Carrie Lake, who's a bag of, crazy peanuts. You also don't want to nominate an ancient person of the establishment class who's seen as out of touch. So it's a very small eye hole of the needle to thread here for Republicans.
All right, Mike, let me go to you now. What do you think about the players on the Democratic side?
Yeah, good to see you guys as first. I can't believe Tony set that low bar of don't be crazy as a bag of peanuts. It shouldn't be that hard of a hurdle to clear, you would think. On the Democratic side, you would think. On the Democratic side, Don, I've had Jasmine Crockett on my show a few times. I've known her camp pretty well over the last couple of years. And Tallarico obviously has not really in state politics, has not really come out of the woodwork, but he's really obviously grown to prominence. And he's done some things that, I echoed in the 24 campaign cycle that Trump did in terms of going to some of these non-traditional places to get your message out, right? He did an episode of Surrounded where he spoke to 20 voters that were potentially maybe going to vote for him, maybe going to vote for somebody else. And that got hundreds of thousands of views. He did other, interviews on Joe Rogan's show and things like that to get his message out there. And he's seen more as a moderate Democrat, whereas Jasmine Crockett has more of the viral moments. But I think a lot of people don't know Jasmine Crockett's background as an attorney. They just see her and some of the exchanges she's had with MTG, but they don't really know how she's won her district, how she was endorsed previously by some of the big leaders out in the state of Texas before her district obviously got a little gerrymandered there. So there are some things that I think a lot of people don't know about Jasmine Crockett that they're going to potentially find out over these. Well, they've been finding out since early voting started, and now that they're finding out today at the ballot box, that I think either candidate will make a good choice for the Democratic side. It'll definitely clear Tony's low bar of don't be crazy like a bag of peanuts. And I think Tallarico will for sure give a little bit more of that moderate feel to the people that are a little bit upset with the direction of the country, tariffs impact, the economy, things like that could potentially in a general vote for a Democrat for the first time. I don't see it, but there are more registered Democrats in the state of Texas than there are Republicans.
I'm just reading Tony's expression there. I don't know if he feels so sure about what you just said, Mike. So, Tony, then let me ask you, what do you think about the chances a Democrat could flip a Senate seat in Texas?
So the question here is, who are the Democrats going to put up against Ken Paxton? And unfortunately, Jasmine Crockett, whose legislative record is atrocious, who participates in a brand new Ebonic accent every week that's disgraceful and disgusting. As I talked to one producer who said it had worked on the Tyler Perry things, we wouldn't even use a caricature of her because of how gross and just out of place that would be to individuals. She's a despicable individual who, again, blamed white supremacy on the disgusting terror attack of the pro-Iranian terror attack in Texas. Just despicable. Tallarico, I would push back a little bit slightly on the suggestion that he's moderate and suggesting he'd fight against Republicans. In that clip that was played, he's very pro kind of the young progressive route of getting rid of the Democrats who understand maybe shutting the government down isn't useful. He's running as a very far progressive, and he's doing it with the Pete Buttigieg kind of bat. I don't know if either of those have the tool to take down Ken Paxton. Now, again, I don't believe that running a Beto O'Rourke campaign for the 8th time in a row is going to be effective. Maybe Ken Paxton is a weak enough candidate to do it. I don't know. Texans don't really care for the school marmy progressive crazy, and that's really what both of those candidates offer. I think that Roy Cooper's got a better shot in the North Carolina Senate race, for example, because at least he knows how not to get out there and, well, not trip on that low bar of not being insane.
So, Mike, Democrats haven't won a Senate election in Texas in almost 40 years. Is this year the year?
No. I mean, you get what you vote for, Don. You know, like it's real simple. Like there are more registered Democrats in the state, like I mentioned before, but folks in the state, for some reason, want to continue the same Ted Cruz hopping on a plane when things get a little rough in the state of Texas type of politician. Ken Paxton, like Tony mentioned he's got more baggage. I'm about to go to LaGuardia in a week or so. He has way more baggage than I pack for. If you can't beat a Ken Paxton in this type of election, to Tony's point, you're never going to beat one, because Ken Paxton has his own issues with respect to some of the things that he's done, not only as AG, but some of the things in his own personal life that I won't even talk about here. I don't want to necessarily push back, because I don't want to defend Jasmine Crockett or anything like that. I think there is such a thing as code switching when you're talking to one audience versus talking to somebody else. The Tallarico stuff, James Tallarico would tell you he is not a progressive. So I don't know if he would characterize that, or anybody from his campaign, or even people that have worked with him in the state legislature would characterize him as that. I think he's trying to run more as almost a center left type of person that could potentially unify the understanding in the state of Texas of, like, we do have a Second Amendment. You do have to have, access to your gun. But also, like, we've had failures from law enforcement in Uvalde. We've had failures from mass shootings that have happened in Texas all throughout the different times under AG Ken Paxton, under John Cornyn, all of these different things. I want to try something different. So I want to balance that line of your Second Amendment rights not being infringed upon by also countering that we should have red flag laws on the books in the state of Texas. Like, so I think there are some people out there, and maybe I have no friggin' idea, Tony, to be honest, and Don, to be honest with you, because they haven't won since '94. So you asked me a question, but the math doesn't math. So we haven't seen a Democrat flip it. And if you can't flip it against a Ken Paxton, it's never going to happen.
So, Tony, can I ask you about what indicators you're looking at? What is the margin that the GOP side, that the candidate needs to win by to make you as comfortable as you can about Republicans maintaining the Senate seat? Any other indicators you're looking at?
Oh, I mean, the main indicators, I think, less on a margin here is what's said after the campaign, between now and between the end of the campaign season. I mean, Beto O'Rourke tried to get out there and do, again, kind of a flamboyant campaign. Colin Allred tried the exact same style. It didn't work. The kind of more been in the Senate style of Cruz and Cornyn, where they shrug off attacks. Ken Paxton's more reactive. So no one snatches defeat from the jaws of victory quite like Republicans in major elections. So again, as Mike alluded to in his personal life, things that I find particularly abhorrent. Again, why I would have much preferred seeing Wesley Hunt at the particular top of this ballot. That's not going to happen. This is something that I think I can't be as comfortable here. Perhaps maybe in the same way that I might say in California, there are some elections I'd really like to see some Republicans win, and they're just not gonna, because that's just how things are done in California as opposed to Texas. And it's the math not mathing in a case, because people believe rotely here that for example, Mike brought up the things that Tallarico believes that might be more appropriate for a moderate Texan Democrat to believe, but he's not running for a state office. Like, he's not going toe to toe with Abbott. He's running for the Senate to impose a national will from the Texans' perspective, which is a bit of a mismatch despite Tallarico. And that's what he draws. Mike's absolutely correct. That is what he portrays to Texans. So there's a little mismatch. It's, why are you running for that position? Why now? Why move from the state legislature and then jumping all the way to the Senate? You got to rally people to come out in the midterm year. And this is just, I don't know, political oatmeal drudgery. I don't know if there's a better way to say that. I certainly can't come up with one.
So, Mike, you said earlier you don't believe that Democrats could win this Texas midterm Senate election. So why do you think there's a narrative that Democrats have a shot here? What do you think is the biggest reason Democrats say they can flip this seat in Texas? Is it the polling numbers? We're seeing reports of Democratic early voting outpacing previous elections. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, first off, the math is mathing. I just mentioned there's more registered Democrats in the state of Texas. What happens is that a lot of these people don't turn out, right? Like it just happens. If you look back at the margins that Beto lost year over year, or 2 year over 2 years, excuse me, like when the analysts overanalyze those races and they see the margins decrease, the first instinct is we got to turn more people out. Yeah, that's great to turn more people out, but you also have to have a candidate that kind of lines up to Tony's point with like the directives of the state holistically, right? So I think the one thing I will say about the Senate seat, and you were asking Tony about factors, the biggest factors that I'm looking for with respect to if they could win is really what's happening right now. I mean, don't take my words for it. Matt Walsh is on Twitter saying that we shouldn't be invading Iran and we shouldn't be, doing regime change, which the president ran against. Tariffs, and the Supreme Court just weighed in on tariffs. And I mentioned to you that Federal Economic Bank Reserve New York a study in February of 26 found that Americans are paying on average $1,000 to $1,300 more because of the impact of tariffs. So it's the economy. Now I'm putting troops in harm's way. The president has classified this as a war. We don't know what's going to happen over these next 6, 7, 8 months. But if we were taking a snapshot in time right now, which is what polling is, everyone would be on board of saying, like, President Trump campaigned on no new wars, and he started one, according to his own words, and the economy is not getting better, and tariffs are impacting American households. This guy's running for, again, Senate at the national level. Those are things to champion. What I'm going to do differently from predecessors that have had the seat, that have been, intertwined with Republican politics. Do you want something different than that, Texans? Come out and vote for me. I think Tallarico offers a little bit more of, the old Joe Biden of like the negotiation, let's meet in the middle type of politician. Crockett is kind of seen sometimes to Texans as, she's just way out there. And I've only seen her viral clips, and she's on every other news program that, starts with an M, an S, or a C, or an N. And I think that's the thing. Like, they don't know as much about Tallarico, right, but when they see him, they know he's steeped in local politics. And so this could be somebody that could appease to them. So I think it's a mixture of things. But back to what you were asking, Tony, Don, I think the factors really have to play out of what's happening at the national perspective.
Right. Okay, I wish we had more time, Tony. Mike, to explore what you said, but we have to leave it there for today. Thank you both for speaking with us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem is testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee. During the hearing, Ranking Member Dick Durbin criticized the department's immigration enforcement efforts.
You and your agency rushed to brand these victims as, quote, domestic terrorists. We have ample video evidence and eyewitness testimony proving you are wrong. Your statements caused immeasurable pain to these families. Let me give you an opportunity to do the right thing. Do you retract these statements identifying these individuals as domestic terrorists?
Senator Durbin, when we have these situations happen, we always offer our condolences to those families, and I offer mine as well. These are tragic situations, and I can't imagine what these families go through in losing a loved one. What I will say is we always work to provide the American people with as much information as possible, that we're relying on reports from the ground and from agents that are there, and working to be transparent, and we'll continue to do all that we can to provide the accurate information and the facts to people as we can.
Durbin pushed for what he called a humane way to deal with immigration enforcement. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn responded to his comments criticizing the Biden administration's immigration policies.
To me, there is nothing sensible and humane about allowing millions of people to violate the rule of law in the United States. And I yield to you for a response.
Yes, well, thank you, Senator. When you look at the Biden immigration policies, I think Senator Durbin is ignoring the consequences of illegal immigration. Over 30% of the young girls that crossed that border during that invasion were raped and brutally harmed by people along the way. There's nobody that crossed that border, came in from Mexico, that didn't have to pay a cartel member to get into this country. Those cartels have been enriched and made sophisticated and professionalized by the money that Joe Biden facilitated putting into their pockets by allowing that invasion to happen and funneling people into the cartel's hands. I also would say that 4,000 people died during that invasion. When people were coming into this country, died because of the inhumane circumstances that were going on, from the heat that they were having to deal with, from drowning in the river. It was not humane what we saw being facilitated by the Biden administration.
Noem's testimony comes as congressional Democrats demand that DHS overhaul its immigration enforcement efforts. Until that time, Democrats have refused to agree to new funding for the department. Republicans are pushing back, saying the DHS needs funding after the strikes on Iran and the FBI's warning of elevated threats here in the U.S. Noem is scheduled to testify before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow. The U.S. military reveals which assets they're deploying in the war against Iran. Jason Perry breaks down what the U.S. is using in the war so far after this break.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
My dad was a farmer, and when I saw him on a horse, the guy was bigger than life. One of the things that he had a hard time doing was showing the emotion. Maybe it was because the way he was raised, or believing that men provide and they don't struggle. But we all struggle. I want to show emotion to my kids. I want them to know when I'm happy, I want them to know when I'm sad, and I want them to see me working through things. The biggest reward I get from being a dad is watching my kids accomplish a goal, watching them light up. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face. So I make my kids a priority. Whether it's hitting a baseball, a dance rehearsal, you name it, I'm there. They're gonna remember that they grew up loved. Be brave. Be there every day. And allow your kids to know that it's okay to struggle. That even dad doesn't know the answer sometimes, but we're gonna figure it out together.
What kind of military equipment is the U.S. bringing to the battlefield against Iran? U.S. Central Command says it's deploying drones, nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, and more. NTD's Jason Perry breaks down some of the U.S. military assets being used in the war against Iran.
The United States military has brought out some of its best assets in its war against Iran. Shortly before the war started, President Trump ordered multiple aircraft carrier strike groups to the Middle East, including the USS General R. Ford, a nuclear-powered carrier that only needs to refuel once about every 25 years. And while it may not look like many sailors are on the ship, over 4,000 personnel are on board, and it has been out at sea since June 2025. And the short runways on top of the carriers have been busy in recent days as fighter jets land and take off in 24-hour operations. The USS Ford is designed to carry about 75 aircraft. And in support of these fighter jets, the U.S. is deploying refueling tanker aircraft, which allow the fighter jets to refuel in the air and continue their missions. Other aircraft in the war against Iran are being used for airborne communication relay, and they would likely take off from U.S. bases in the Middle East. One aircraft used for communications is the E-11 Alpha, which looks like a normal civilian plane, but essentially functions as a low Earth satellite to help pilots and other service members communicate with each other. And for the first time, the U.S. military has used one-way attack drones in combat, which were likely launched from a U.S. base in the Middle East. The Lucas drones, which are said to be a low-cost kamikaze-style aircraft, were actually modeled after an Iranian attack drone. The U.S. is also using other drones in the war against Iran, including the MQ-9 Reaper, which is larger than the Lucas drone and serves a different purpose. It's designed to stay in the air for extended periods of time to conduct surveillance and is also capable of launching precision strikes. And on the other hand, the U.S. has deployed counter-drone defensive systems. And continuing on the defensive side, the U.S. is using a multi-layered missile defense system, including the Patriot, which is used to intercept missiles, drones, and other aircraft. The United States Central Command says there are other special capabilities being used in the war against Iran, but they're not able to make public. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran over the weekend have eliminated almost all the senior leaders of the Islamic regime, but Iran's closest allies, China and Russia, have yet to offer any support beyond diplomatic gestures. To break it down, China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan offers his assessment of Beijing's next move and what the strikes mean for the CCP's Middle East and global agenda. NTD's Flora Hua has the story.
China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea are widely seen in the West as a new axis of evil. This China-led alliance has long sought to overthrow the U.S.-led world order. Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping has repeatedly touted his global agenda since 2021, which says the East is rising and the West is declining. And Iran is China's biggest ally in the Middle East. China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan says the strikes on Iran could come close to dismantling Beijing's plans to achieve global dominance.
Iran is Beijing's key foothold in the Middle East and its main leverage against the U.S. A regime change in Iran, especially toward a pro-U.S. government, would deal a major blow to the CCP, undoing years of regional investment. U.S. and Israeli strikes threatening Iran's regime could mark the start of this axis's fragmentation.
Moving on to energy, China relies heavily on oil imports. It's the top buyer of oil from Venezuela, Russia, and Iran, all of which are facing serious Western sanctions. Official data shows 80% of Iran's oil exports goes to China. The strikes on Iran once again put China's energy security on the line following the U.S. takeover of Venezuela's oil industry. Tang says tightening the control over China's energy supplies can reduce Beijing's ability to expand its global aggression.
The CCP is not energy self-sufficient and has long pursued a diversification strategy to avoid dependence on any single supplier. The Trump administration's approach aims to systematically restrict China's energy import channels. If those routes are narrowed to just one or two sources, Beijing's supply security would be significantly weakened. Without stable energy access, the CCP's capacity for external expansion would be sharply constrained.
But will Beijing provide Iran with military support? Tang says he believes the chances are minimal, saying he doesn't think China is keen to escalate tensions with the U.S. now, as Washington and Beijing are discussing details of inviting President Trump to visit China next month. And especially now as the large-scale military purges and political infighting within the CCP have intensified to unprecedented levels.
Xi Jinping is facing domestic and international pressures that have weakened his position. His invitation to Trump to visit China suggests he hopes to use the visit to strengthen his standing. If he were to provide military aid to Iran, it would risk a direct rupture with Trump, potentially even leading Trump to cancel the trip. At the same time, the CCP understands that the latest U.S.-Israel strike on Iran reflects strong resolve. If Trump acts, he likely intends to secure a decisive outcome. Limited Chinese military support to Iran would be unlikely to change the situation and could instead backfire on Beijing.
Tang says the CCP would definitely prioritize its own survival over that of its allies at critical moments. Just weeks ago, Beijing withheld support to its close friend, Venezuela dictator Nicolas Maduro, when he was captured by U.S. troops. Flora Hua, NTD News.
The Iranian women's soccer team appears to be showing solidarity with the people of Iran longing for a future without the oppressive Iranian regime. During the Monday night opening ceremony of the AFC Women's Asian Cup in Australia, the women's team refused to sing the Iranian national anthem, what's being interpreted as a protest against the regime. Joining us now is Shahrzad Ghaneh, publisher of the Epoch Times Persian edition. Shahrzad, thank you for joining us today. So first, let's take a look at that moment in this clip. So, Shahrzad, how do you interpret this move? And tell us what the history behind the current Iranian national anthem is.
I would say they are patriotic athletes because Iran's true national anthem is different from the one that was being played right now. This is the Islamic Republic anthem. It's nothing, no element in this anthem is Iranian. There's nothing patriotic in it. It's just for the Islamic Republic that they made it after the revolution in 1979. So it's the Iran's true anthem is what is called O Iran, which is unlike like royal anthems. It's not tied to monarchy or the like the Shah's times. The O Iran anthem, which collectively Iranian think should be considered as national anthem, it expresses deep love for the homeland, national pride, and resistance against foreign domination. So and this anthem, although it's never been officially designated as Iran's national anthem or a permanent one, even before 1979, it's widely embraced by the Iranian people, by the public, and over the months, recent months, Iranian people are singing that one as actually over many years, decades. They're singing it as the Iranian's national anthem. So they are showing that we do not believe that this anthem of the Islamic Republic is something that Iranians should sing.
Okay, so along with your explanation, I can understand why the women's team wouldn't want to sing along. But does this kind of silent protest on the world stage pose any risk at all to the women involved or their families who may be back home?
Yes, definitely. Even in the past, there have also been instances where sports team or there were individuals, the athletes, that they try to resist the compulsory and non-human rights-based regulations and rules that are imposed by the Islamic Republic. But we know that each time they faced serious consequences after they returned to the country, or I would say they often were contacted, they were threatened, they were forced to sign pledges, or they would give coerced confessions. They had to do that. They were pressured into complying with the official regulations by the Islamic Republic. This time, however, looks like after killing more than 40,000 people in Iran, and as President Trump also stated, people in the street, that they were shot by snipers. They were using live ammunition. So these young athletes looks like they no longer have that fear. It's part of a collective movement.
So with that being said, what kind of hope do you think this protest by the women's soccer team give Iranians, especially Iranian women suffering under the dictatorship?
Yeah, so again, it's a collective movement. It's happening one after the other. So after these mass killings, it was different people inside Iran. They said, okay, we no longer want to be a part of the Islamic Republic in any way. Like celebrities came out and say, we don't want to play any role in any movie or any series that have relations to the Islamic Republic that is being funded by the Islamic Republic. So they came out, they spoke up, and now we see athletes are doing the same things. We see a lot of Iranian people inside the country are risking their own life, their own freedom, their own families even might be contacted. So it's a part of the collective movement, I would say, that a lot of Iranians are coming out and showing in one way or the other that we are not with the Islamic Republic. We do not support them.
So Shahrzad, can we just take a look at the future of Iran here based on what's happening right now, the situation in Iran? Practically all of the top leadership of Iran has been taken out, and the president of the United States is urging the Iranian people to take back their country and choose their new leader. So talk to us about this from the perspective, what do women in particular have to gain from a free Iran?
Well, so far, women inside Iran have been under the Islamic rules. I would say not just Islamic, because Islamic Republic is not just about being about Islam. It's a combination of Islam and very leftist ideologies, like mix of the original idea came from Sayyid Qutb, which was a mix of Islam and Marxism to some extent. So women has lived under this regulation and rules for so many years. There's they have to wear hijab. They have had to wear hijab for so many years, for 47 years. They had the freedom before that, before the 1979 revolution, and which this is a kind that they do not believe in. You know, Iranian people are not this type of jihadi people. This is not the ideology they believe in. It's just that the current Islamic Republic is imposing these rules on on the Iranian people. For the future, for sure, Iranian women would gain their freedom. They can select what to wear, how to present themselves in the society, and then there are for sure limitations in society for them, and for sure all of them will be gone.
So Shahrzad, I just wanted to say, you know, sometimes it's extremely hard to believe it's the same country when you see the photos of Iran before the 1979 revolution and afterwards, Shahrzad.
Yes, absolutely. Before 1979 revolution, Iran was a free country. Even sometimes it was called the Paris of the Middle East. People were the society was developing very rapidly under Mohammad Reza Shah. He was a patriot, and he was trying to make advanced development in the country, from infrastructure, you say, to giving women's a lot of rights, right to vote, right to have the same human rights, the rights as a man has in the society. So it was completely different. But then we know what happened after 1979, that the Islamists, I would say jihadists, took over the country. So probably things would go back to the same after the regime change. But more than that, it's for Iranian, what really matters is that they want to have their dignity back. Right now, if you ask an American, say, okay, we're talking about Iran or Iranian people, what would they assume? Is that, oh, Iran is an evil country, they are like jihadis, they hate Americans, which that's not true. Like none of the Iranian people, I would say none, because still some might live by that ideology that for those who are have ties with the Islamic Republic. But in general, Iranian people love Westerners, love American people. They want to host them into their country, and this is such a contradiction with what the image is and what the truly Iranian people, who they are. And we're talking about a country that has like 2,500 years of civilization, monarchy, and the country stayed together, was always unified. We're talking about such history, and this history is being like and these Iranian people have lost their dignity, and this is something that they're seeking to get it back.
So just final question, Shahrzad. You said earlier that the Iranian people just want their dignity back. Is that the biggest thing that the people are looking forward to if we see a free Iran? What do you think people want the most?
Well, that's just a part of it. That's just a part of it. What they mostly want is the free Iran with no rules from the Islamic Republic, with no, like, the Islamic Republic ruined the environment. They brought corruption to the system. They started fighting all countries, like Western countries. Even right now, we can see their neighbors. They are even sending missiles to the neighbor countries without any specific reason. So what the Iranian right now want, they want to have peace with the world. They want to just get away from China. Right now, you see how dominant China is on the Islamic Republic, on Iran's oil. So they don't want to sell the oil to China with like $30, $40 discount per barrel. This is insane. So all of this, like, they want to go on track and live a normal life, having a normal life like any other countries. And they say we deserve just to have a normal life and to have a peaceful relation with all countries, especially with Western countries. They wanted to be ally with US.
Okay, well said, Shahrzad. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you for having me.
President Trump says he will attend the White House Correspondents Association dinner for the first time as president. Trump says he was very nicely asked about this to be an honoree at this year's dinner. The president said he is accepting the invitation in honor of the nation's 250th birthday, adding that many of the correspondents now admit he is, quote, truly one of the greatest presidents in the history of our country. Trump declined to attend during his first term over his view that much of the media was unfairly biased against him. The president also did not attend in 2025, the first year of his second presidential term. President Trump directs the U.S. Development Finance Corporation and the U.S. Navy to provide assurance for security for ships through the Strait of Hormuz. More news after this break.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyze it and help you select the best lenses and options to suit you. Click to place the order and your new Select Specs glasses are delivered right to your door. Ordering your prescription glasses is as easy as 1, 2, C with Select Specs and selectspecs.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. on food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire,